We are live. Welcome to my video on the third and so far final, probably always going to remain final, part of the Divergent film series 2016's Allegiant. This video will start with a review where the only thing I spoil is the first two movies, and then I will get into a spoiler section, my so-called thoughts section. So, the movie is rated PG-13. So will this video be. Standing in somewhat stark contrast to the really excellent Scaredy Cats review of 28 years later. Like, I still love that movie. He hated it. I did think he made really compelling points. There's definitely aspects that I think less of having watched his video. And I was, you know, as usual, it's also a very funny video. I was particularly delighted by the running gag. And this is a movie that I largely love. I do have some issues with it. So let's see. I think that is it for the general thing. This has a lot, arguably most, of the strengths that the second film has, so if I neglect to mention something, please assume that it's the same as the second film. I think that does more or less, I guess, yes. In this movie, you know, it's very much like there's this new, you know, leader, and they are persecuting their political enemies in a way that doesn't really seem at all beneficial to regular people. It just feels like more like petty grievance than actual, you know, and yeah, they're trying to assert as much control as they can, including with threats of violence. Does it sound like I'm describing America in Trump's second term? I swear what I said is true of the movie as well. I do that joke too often, don't I? I gotta wait I gotta give it a little cool down before I bring that sucker back out. Can you tell it's one of my favorite bits to do? Anyway, yeah, I think, yeah. So this, you know, by the end of the second one, we found out that we had been lied to about the world outside the wall, and yeah, understandably, this movie gets into what is the world outside the wall like. And I thought they did a really good job. I don't think I'm going to get too much into it in the review itself, because I was very happy to be surprised by it. Let's see. I think, yeah, you know, other than that, there is conflict in Chicago. Let's see. I think I don't think I'm going to get too much into it, because I was surprised, and very nicely so. This has a pretty high psychological accuracy, authenticity, and level of detail. This has some of the best gadgets and sci-fi concepts in general, and action scenes of the trilogy that was meant to be a quadrilogy. And let's see, yeah, the dialogue is quite good. They do a good job of having, you know, yeah, all the different characters have their own voice, so to speak, in how they phrase things and what they say and don't say. And yeah, there are some times where the wording is just pitch perfect. Just yeah, I think this is a decent enough time to talk about. So as I have alluded to, yes, this was part one. They were, there were only 3 books, but they split the last book into 2, same as, they did with Hunger Games, and I understand they also did for Harry Potter. I think I may have mentioned it before. I haven't watched those movies or read those books, so I try not to discuss like quality wise. I've watched like videos that break them down and such. Yeah, I don't know. There were people who asked me to 20 years ago. I watched a little. Didn't really seem like my kind of thing. Obviously not going to get into it now because, like, am I going to make a video talking about how I like something made by the Queen Turf? That's not going to happen. I guess this is a pretty decent time to plug. Another video. Canoer did a video. I want to say that it is called UK Labor is Cooked. Fantastic job, as usual. I think, what was the other one? I think Essence of Thought also recently did another really, really great video talking about trans kids genuinely being in danger of abuse. Yeah, that's incredibly messed up. I'm so glad that she and others are actually talking about this so that we can do something about it, LGBTQ plus people have always been abused, but for a long time it was silent. It was out of sight, out of mind, and finally we're actually, part because of the internet and social media, although, there are countries trying to censor it, so that's also something we have to fight back against. Yeah, there's always something. The rich and various powerful conservatives will always keep us busy fighting for justice. Yes, this movie was meant to be part one of and part two, the 4th movie, does not exist. There was a while where they were talking about maybe it would be like direct-to-video. I think, did they talk about maybe making a TV show, miniseries? I forget the details, but yeah, this movie underperformed. And from what I understand, part of it was franchise fatigue. People just weren't as invested in this franchise as they were in Hunger Games, which, it paid off for Hunger Games, did not pay off here. And some people, didn't go see it because of the negative reviews, which, I get that. I've skipped movies over negative reviews. And let's see, I think, okay, some of the other complaints I will get to later in the video, but, right, one thing, some people were very unhappy with how the book was adapted. For this one, I did not listen through the book. My wrists need me to go easy on them as much as possible. Right now, that means yeah, no books for me. Yeah, I read some stuff about like how it's, say it with me, the book is more detailed, and I 100% get it. It's one of those things where, some books are just very difficult to adapt successfully into movies. Yeah. I am not unhappy that I watched this. I knew going into it that there was no 4th movie. This does end somewhat on a cliffhanger, but it does resolve more than, like, near the end, I was a little worried. Is it going to resolve all this? It did resolve more than I had worried that it would. Oh, by the way, crap, I completely forgot to mention, this entire trilogy was requested by Arts Cafe. Thank you again. You really do know the kind of movies and shows I'm gonna really, really love. Yeah. I think... yeah, I guess the rest of it I am going to get into. Yeah, I would definitely say this did a better job than Hunger Games of having enough like resolution for it to feel like. I do love the Hunger Games movies, all of 5 of them, 5 total. You know, 4 based on 3 books, and then the prequel. I am 100% willing to admit, the third movie, the way it ends, it's like, okay, I mean, I can tell you split a book in 2, because this is not that much of an ending, of a conclusion. And you know, I'm not the only person to point that out. Yeah, I thought that this fared better in that regard, definitely. Yeah, still, I do think this is better than the Hunger Games movies. I think by once I've done the entire review, I'll try to rank the entire trilogy. Yeah. So, the direction remains very strong. You know, it's still Robert Schwenke, and yeah, the he knows how to keep things moving. He has this really kinetic, dynamic sense of just like, yeah, I have never been bored for a second watching one of his movies. You know, it just like, I'm not saying he's perfect, but yeah, it is never boring. It never stands still. The cinematography and editing continue to be really, really solid. Like, when they go to a new place, we get these like amazing establishing shots. Like, big, the camera will like swoop through, and it's just, yeah, you really get a sense of place. Some of the time, even though it's like a shot showing like maybe a dozen people, all of them will be doing something. Sometimes something very intense, you know, and it's just, yeah. And he also knows when to calm down on the camera a little bit and just let a scene play out without getting too, you know, just, yeah, let the material and the performances speak for themselves, because there is a lot of good there. So the editing does this really nice thing where there are, I guess I can't really detail it without spoiling something. I'll just say they do certain things that are very, very interesting and compelling. And the production value is great. Again, these places feel lived in, you know? The set design and location scouting, like, they do such a phenomenal job that it feels like this is where people actually, you know, spend time and find a way to get by, more or less. And, you know, some of the places, it feels like this is not a good place to be. Other places, it's like very luxurious, and the contrast is very effective. This continues the trend of the trilogy of really solid allegory. There is some just brilliant stuff here about fascism that, yeah, really, really appreciated. Right, the costumes and makeup also do a solid job of communicating who people are, what the situation is. The music is great. Really, really gets you involved emotionally. The sound design is fantastic. There are some things that just have the exact right, like the way they sound. It's I cannot give a single example without spoiling anything, but just, yeah. It is not a spoiler to say this has the coolest vehicle at least one really, really cool vehicle type. The coolest of the trilogy. So, the characters, this is one place where stuff was, from what I understand, from what I read, simplified from the book, and yeah, you can tell. I think they largely do a good job. There's just enough there. Like, there's some characters where, like, you don't even necessarily spend that much time with them. They don't necessarily have that many lines or meaningful character actions. There's just enough that you appreciate who they are, why they do what they do, and you come to care about them. I would say, I can't speak for anyone else, but I cared about every character in this. And there's some really compelling stuff for Tobias and Triss, yet again. And yeah, when it comes to characters, this definitely has some issues. So, the second movie has such a compelling villain presence, because even when you are not in the same room as the Kate Winslet character, she's on a screen and she's delivering these fascist speeches, and she just does such an amazing job. This was actually I guess I can't say that without spoiling. Okay, I'll remember to say it in the spoiler section. But yeah, they don't really, they don't directly replace her character in a way that, like, they don't have quite an equivalent here. Like, I'm not going to give away exactly who, but there is at least one character that is a villain in this movie, but it is not done in the same way, which by itself is fine, but I don't think what they do instead is equally as effective. That is really everything I can say about that. There are characters here that ultimately don't get to play that huge of a role, including some returning characters, and part of it is that they have to make room for certain new characters. And again, I think overall they handle it well, but it is definitely a case where some characters I wish were in more of this movie. Yeah. Which again is not really an issue that the second one had, but that is also, you know, when you're doing the last part of a story, you don't necessarily have as much flexibility as the middle part. Yeah, I guess that this is a perfectly fine place to bring up. So, one thing I saw multiple critics say is they felt like this ultimately didn't. You know, one thing I saw, at least one critic use the metaphor, they're still setting the table. And I think that is a good way to put it. Again, I don't think everything in the movie is just like nothing, you know, but it definitely is the kind of thing where I don't know. It's difficult. It would have been difficult for them to do it very differently from what they did here. Once they decided that it was going to be 2 movies instead of 1, I think ultimately it probably would have been a good idea to try to just do it as 1 movie, you know, but that's, yeah, every so often Hollywood execs completely misjudge certain things. I guess this is also a decent enough time to talk about. So, the there is some like faction stuff here, and it's the kind of thing where I think there's a couple of really good things with, faction kind of stuff. Overall, they don't have that much of, like, there's some, yeah. There's not as much faction stuff as in the first two movies. And again, by itself, not a problem. I think it would have been great if they had been able to replace it with something that was equally or, even more interesting. And I do think they try. I just don't think they completely stick the landing. And it is one of those things where you got to be careful with. It's like with how, with Hunger Games, they were like, well, we got to try to keep a certain element. I don't want to spoil those movies in this video. They're trying to keep a specific element intact because it is kind of part of the DNA. It's part of what makes that franchise stand out against others. And yeah, with this one, I think same thing. And that is one area where overall I think they do a better job in the Hunger Games movies, in those 5 movies, than here. Let's see. So the acting, once again, phenomenal performances. There's a non-zero number of characters in this that have very, very little screen time, and because of the acting talent, they are still so memorable. They make such a strong impression on you. And, yeah, like, there are times where the acting has to be extremely subtle, and they do a phenomenal job. Shailene Woodley and Theo James, it's so impressive. And in this one, Jeff Daniels joins the cast, and I'm so glad that I've been able to discover his non-comedic work, because as funny as he is when he does comedic work, as a dramatic actor, he has so much to bring. Every single one of these movies has just amazing actors, and certain really well-established actors, people we've known for a while, have just an infinite, pool to draw from of raw talent. Wait, is it refined talent? Is raw talent when they're new? Whatever. I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, this had some of the best acting of the trilogy. And, it's one of those cases where there are characters that you'll see in very different circumstances. And, that can be very, very challenging for an actor. And everyone delivers. I never felt like someone was behaving in a way that just didn't really fit. The pacing. I thought that the pacing was great in this film until around the halfway mark, at which point it's this very kind of awkward thing where it is both rushing and dragging, because it has so much ground to cover. That was another thing. Some critics, I forget if it was critics or audiences, but some criticized it certainly for changing some, the plot of the book for this movie, and the movie ending up very convoluted. And that's part of why, yeah. In the second half of this, it has to explain so much to the audience and to certain characters, but also be careful not to, hence rushing, but also be careful not to actually deliver the ultimate conclusion to this story because it's only part one, And yeah, I gotta say, I think some of that stuff should have been earlier in the movie, and I appreciate that would have taken a major rewrite, but I think it would have paid off. That is something where I could see, like, some people might have, watched this movie, been frustrated with the second half, and told their friends, don't watch it. Or at least wait for, like, home media or something. It's not worth theater prices and, the theater experience, which I understand a lot of people hate. I don't, but I'm fortunate to have not experienced a lot of the negatives that I hear people talk about for the, yeah. I think that pretty well covers, yeah. These special effects, some of the time, look amazing. But there is a bunch of CG in this, and some of it definitely is not quite photorealistic. That was another thing that was disappointing to a number of people. And yeah, it does harm immersion. And it's one of those things, like, I don't know if maybe the effects people were rushed, because I gotta say, I've seen better effects from movies from 2016, So yeah, it is, yeah, I wouldn't rule out that it was rushed or something, but it definitely does, because yeah, it's important that you believe that these things exist, and ultimately for some of it just doesn't. Let's see. Already talked about the action and the sci-fi, right? So let's move on. So, yeah, this being PG-13, this is one of those things where they have to be careful not to show certain violence. And there was one spot where I was not sure, like, yeah, I'll talk about it in detail in the spoiler section, but yeah, what can I say about it? It was a slightly unfortunate way that they dealt with a certain thing, but yeah, largely it works. The they push the violence as far as they can, basically. And like, it still feels like violence hurts in this movie. That's one of the big things, there are, I think it was the abridged script for The Dark Knight Rises pointed out, I guess I won't say exactly what, but there's at least one bit of violence in that movie where it didn't seem like extremely painful or, yeah, violent, as it were. And yeah, by and large, in this one, they do it right. It helps that some of the violence is like physical fighting, and there, you can go, but by 2016, you could go reasonably far in a PG-13 in making violence feel like, okay, punches hurt in this movie, Yeah, I don't think the stuff that gets it the PG-13 rating is gratuitous. And I guess that does pretty well. Yeah, so ultimately, yeah. So rating the trilogy, worst to best, and I love all three: Divergent, Allegiant, and Insurgent. Yeah, I rate this 7 penultimate chapters that are better than you might think or might have heard, out of 10. And that brings us to the spoiler-ridden thoughts section. So, yes, I am going to try to keep this chronological. I think I'll start by noting, right, and to be clear, I might spoil the ending at the start of the thought section, so yeah, please steer clear if you haven't watched the movie. I really don't want to spoil this for anyone who's at all considering watching. Yeah, Kate Winslet really badly wanted to be in this because she, and was like, listen, I'll do a, simulation or flashback, just let me know, and unfortunately they couldn't quite work her in. And I do appreciate, I don't know where they would have put her. But yeah, it is really cool that she wanted to return, and she is just so freaking good in the first two movies. So yeah, by the end of the movie, we realize that David is the primary villain here. And since he's a twist villain, like Kate Winslet's character was in the first movie, we don't get an awful lot of, big monologues and such. And I do also appreciate, like, I get not wanting to just do that again. And listen, I'm willing to grant it might, if they just did that, it might have felt tedious and like old. But yeah, because we don't have, the movie doesn't have a central villain for a good chunk of it. I guess, is it the halfway mark or so? Maybe the last, maybe 2/3 in or so that you realize for sure David is the villain. Evelyn is definitely an antagonist, but I would argue that she doesn't really come across as a central villain during the movie, as much as it feels like we're, there's got to be something, yeah. What's the word? There's something we're not quite, piecing together yet, kind of thing, Let's see. So the one of the things about having the twist villain and bringing in a brand new villain, introducing a new character and then making them the villain, I think this would have been a really great time to have a central villain that was a character we already knew. I think Evelyn could have been a good central villain, but again, as I said in the review about something else, would have required a major rewrite. But Naomi can absolutely do a great job at that. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad they redeemed her there at the end. I really, really appreciated that. So it's not that I wanted her as the central villain, but the fact that they don't, yeah. I don't know, would Daniel Day Kim have been, he got way too little to do in this movie. Maybe he could have been the new central villain, but just like have a presence, and then every so often cut to them, and someone says, "I'm sorry, sir, we failed," and then he like shoots that guy and says, "You're in charge now, don't fail me," or something like that. But the fact that we just don't have anything, it's a little bit late to introduce this much new stuff. It feels like, it's very similar to the first movie in that we spend a bunch of time in one place learning about that particular like sect and their ideology, and we realize, oh, there was lying going on. They were a big old fibber, and now we have to fight some of the people that we used to trust, kind of thing. I got into it emotionally, but I do definitely appreciate, especially considering that it was just, second to last, rather than, I don't know if it would have been a huge problem if it happened, but the movie ends with them actually being defeated, which is also, like, ultimately, like, hypothetically, have the movie, when she goes to the council, have her reveal that she has a weapon, a projectile weapon of some kind. She forces them to do something or other, shut down, what was it, Prodigy? Providence, I think it was called. Learning so many new names of, yeah. I watch a lot of stuff, a lot of different franchises. Anyway, yeah, shut all that down, open, they have Evelyn open the gates, and everyone can anyone who wants to can go into, I forget what it's called, but leave Chicago and go outside, and have some voiceover near the end with a little bit of visual where they explain, we completely did away with, treating people different based on differences, and just agreed we're all fine the way nobody is lesser. And yeah, David, when he realizes that just as they are about to shut it down, he charges her. She shoots him, maybe not killing him, and then maybe he's put on trial. Not one of Evelyn's trials, preferably. Yeah, I think that instead of the climax, leaving it like, okay, they sent the bomb in there, sure, but ultimately, yeah. I think, does that more or less cover? I guess I'll briefly mention, so already just mentioned Daniel Day Kim, Mekhi Phifer, and oh my god, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. My wrists are too bad to look it up right now. Crap. Okay, I'm gonna have to move on. Yeah, I'm sorry. He also played the Punisher. He perished not terribly long ago. Big fan. I don't know why I can't remember. Sometimes my memory really, really fails. But yeah. I thought it was too bad that they were in so little of the movie, though they do both have some great character moments. But yeah, they were some of the ones that remained. They were such compelling characters. Like Mekhi Phifer. Like we throughout the first, well, throughout the second movie, we really love to hate him. In the first one, once we realize he's one of the antagonists, or works with the antagonists, yeah, we want to see him defeated. So it's, it's satisfying when they temporarily defeat him in first two movies, and then in this one, like, I definitely want to make clear, I really, really appreciate the bittersweet nature to his execution, because they could so easily have just gone for a catharsis, like a fist bump, and maybe that's also something people didn't like, because I do think the first two, it doesn't necessarily culminate in a character's death, but there is catharsis when we see defeat, as I just mentioned, for Mekhi Phifer, for, I can't believe I'm playing, Jai Courtney, and that's another thing. I did think, I mentioned that in my video on the second one. I thought it was great when when 4 shot him, but I don't think the new ones, like, I mean, I appreciate, that guy. Part of it is also that he's a twist villain, so we barely get to appreciate him as a villain, and then he, when they crash. But yeah, the guy who gives orders in the outside the walls, and he tries to pull a gun and shoot Thor in that awesome vehicle. Holy crap! Yeah, that was the one I was talking about in the that, and also I did also really appreciate the the other one, the one that David uses a lot for transport, and near the end they also use it to get out of the bureau, get away from the bureau back to Chicago. Let's see, the really cool when the camo drones form around, because they fly directly into them, so now they have an invisible ship, very clever, so no one sees them approach. But yeah, let's see, I think, yeah, I did really appreciate that. It's like, because the way that they just execute him right after he says he doesn't want to die, and at the same time he is still like, they give him the truth serum and he's like, I don't regret what I did. They were sheep. He has dehumanized. Yeah, and we see, throughout the movie, we see that dehumanization is a massive problem within dictatorships, and yeah, that's what happened there. It's what, the once let's see, once she's using the gas, she has effectively dehumanized, because she's taking away everything they are. And David has dehumanized everyone in Chicago. It's these, yeah. I think that does. And I will say, I can definitely see how they could get an entire movie out of, because now, like, David knows, that Trish knows, that David knows, and yeah, they're going to have to pool a lot of resources. Everyone in Chicago is going to have to work together if they're going to have any chance against the Bureau. And, they don't even have the element of surprise on them. And there's, I'm sure they could have, there's additional stuff that they, for like characters to, yeah. I would have really liked to see what, Peter, now that he's betrayed them all, what would happen next with him. He's mad at David, understandably. Just, yeah. Anyway, I think that more or less covers the... But yeah, it's... So yes, there's a bit of Judgment in Nuremberg going on, with Max and but the fact that they so quickly execute, and later, like, she straight up uses, she says, maybe I'll put you on trial. She's saying, I'll execute you. She's not saying, I'm going to sue you. That's, yeah. She's not as eager to sue people as Donald Trump. Speaking of lawsuits, pretty amazing that Candace Owens actually thought she was going to get away with, like without being sued. I mean, yeah, her claims of Macron's wife being trans. Wow, like some conservative, like, media figures just have no restraint, no good judgment when it comes to that. It takes a lawsuit to get them to stop. Same thing with Dominion. I don't blame Macron or Dominion for suing. On the contrary. Anyway, I think. But yeah, there's also some French Revolution going on, and that's the thing. Like, during the French Revolution, yeah, people who agreed with the revolution, some of them ended up being executed too. So it makes a lot of sense that they are. Like, it's one thing that they want to, that Tris for Christina and Caleb want to know what's going on outside the walls, but the fact that they're in such a rush, like, they know, this, it's dangerous to stay here, like, take this. And yeah, the idea that Caleb would be one of them, like, even if you're like, Max, he deserved it, which I'm not necessarily saying he didn't, just the, yeah, it. I believe in restorative justice, not retributive justice. But yeah, even if you felt like deserves it, Caleb though, really, and yeah, I thought they did a great job with that. I think, and the cheering and jeering crowd during the execution, because Joanna is like, I won't be party to this, and there are a couple of people, the it seems like a lot of the people there are factionless, so they follow. I'm afraid I forget her name, but Four's mom, and yeah, they're in favor of it. This is what they wanted, kind of thing. But there are some people who disagree, and Joanna straight up says, I won't be part of this, and walks away, and they, like, they boo her for not taking part in something she finds ethically wrong, and that again it's a massive red flag, I think that does, and it does also, it is an interesting thing because in the second movie she was very much about nonviolence as much as at all possible, and was it around the midway point maybe she like raises an army, which Evelyn, that's her name, isn't it? She had a bunch of people killed who were unarmed. Yeah. Joanna, gathers a bunch of people, and there's too many of them, Sid. I thought they did a fantastic job there. They would win if Evelyn didn't do something drastic. I thought they did a great job with, we see a bunch of people out in the streets. Those are Joanna's people. They're trying to get inside. The ship lands on the building, and then they go inside the building. So everyone they fight in there, everyone they encounter in there, is obviously going to be on Evelyn's side, because otherwise, Joanna's people would have already won, basically, if they're inside the building. So very nicely done on that. Am I seriously not past talking about Max's execution? Okay. Let's see. I think. Yes. So the next thing. I thought they did a great job. It was the way that they gather everyone, because it is like, by now, like, they know who people want to see, and maybe it's also in the book, but yeah, they know who we want to follow. So yeah, you have the Triss goes in and says, I'll deal with Caleb myself, which is one of those things, like, you can just barely believe that the guard would accept that, because I mean, she's the revolutionary, remember? She's the insurgent. She won. You wouldn't have him as a prisoner if not for her. Yeah, you accept her word, which is, of course, also, under fascism, if you have a higher rank, you can act irrationally, destructively, and a lot of others will just let you do it, go along with it, even help out, because you outrank them. Which is also the case if, obviously the author outranks the audience. Anyway, if you haven't watched, Lindsay Ellis a while back did an excellent video talking about, among other things, The Producers, which was actually called Springtime for Hitler in some Scandinavian countries. I guess we are less sensitive about outright calling something like that. I don't really blame the American censors for being like, you're not calling the movie that. I am really glad that he balked when they said, oh, you could make it Springtime for Mussolini. Read the room. Whoever said that, like, wow. Have you met Mel Brooks? Like, okay, I guess this was the first time he did it, but like, he comments on Hitler, and yeah, it comes up in multiple of his movies. I think, where does that bring us? Yes, so yeah, she takes him out, but the guard does also, radio it in. Which is also, they're doing a good job of showing this sort of chaos. Like, people don't know who to trust, who to listen to. Like, he does a thing, and then he radios his superior and is like, did I do the wrong thing here? That's the sign of a badly run place. Evelyn should have... And to be clear, I'm not saying that she's, like, the worst person ever. Again, I'm really glad she got redemption by the end. But I do think we see here that she is not the right person to lead. I think Joanna would have been fantastic. Or is it Joanne? I'm going to go with Joe, because that way it's not wrong. Yeah, and that is sometimes the case with revolutions. That's one of the issues with, I'm not saying that a violent revolution... Okay, I have to choose my words very carefully here. So, I think violence should always be the absolute last resort. If there is any way to accomplish your goal without violence, you shouldn't use violence. I'm not saying it's never necessary. It was necessary at Stonewall. And, as much as I don't think military force should be used unless absolutely necessary, I'm glad that Hitler was stopped when he was. That definitely required violence and military. The two don't always go together. A lot of the time they do. But yeah, a violent revolution, one of the issues with that is, are you sure that the person who now becomes the leader is ideal? Because a lot of violent revolutions don't lead to a democratic election. And that is, of course, yeah, hence that problem. And some of the worst leaders of various nations and such specifically came to power by, taking power, usurping. It wasn't always a revolution, but yeah. I think, and that was something, in the second movie, like I forget if they came right out and said it, but they implied, is it really, would she be a good leader? Like, 4 doesn't seem to think so. And, by the end, we realize there's a decent chance she's going to be the leader in the next one, so. What was the other thing? They kind of didn't really do Trish's PTSD in this one the way that they did in the second. And that is also a thing. There is not one single simulation in this. The only serum used is truth, not the ones that induce these hallucinations, And that, again, in part, it is something that is crucial for it to feel like one of these films. And it's part of the... Oh, hold on, right. So, I was about to say they don't... I forgot. They do... The replacement is basically Triss, experiencing, her mother's past. Which I thought it was a good detail that she did briefly desync. And then was told, get your head in the game. Abstergo's still out there. I like that sequence. Ultimately, it was not as impactful on the whole as the first one had. First we had the test that revealed she was a Divergent. Then we had the tests for Dauntless, facing fears and such. The second one had the tests for all of the different factions. In each of those, it was something personal to Triss, and it was very dramatic, sometimes traumatic. And in this, she wasn't there for her mom's, that was before her mom had her. I wouldn't have hated if there was maybe some, like maybe one of the ways David proves that he really has been watching and he knows Triss is she goes through something where she re-experiences her childhood and sees her mother again, and like she's like, I miss you so much. That kind of thing I think could have really worked. Yeah, I think that does. So yes, they're trying to they're getting out of Chicago, and yeah, so it's radioed in, and several guards try to intercept, and so yeah, with four, they get into a vehicle, and they start driving, and they get to a checkpoint, which again, like, why do you need checkpoints? Why are you watching when people come and go? That again, it's like a dictatorship, which was the whole reason that they got, Janine. They stopped Janine because she was running a dictatorship. The whole point was to get rid of the dictatorship. And that's the thing, like sometimes a revolution leads to a dictatorship. It's horrible, but sometimes that is the case. Yeah. And I think, yeah, so, right, they're trying to drive away, and, Peter comes up, and he's like, so, looks like you're leaving. Would you like me to help with that? I mean, I could yell, help, they're getting, stop them, they're getting away. Okay, fine. You let me in, He was at his most hateable in this movie, especially once you realize he's straight up betraying them. He's betraying all of Chicago for David. When he, shoots Evelyn and presses the button. Holy crap. Yeah. Yeah. And then he goes to he goes outside the wall and like yells, you think you can just, screw me over? That was such a great moment when the gas comes in that chamber as well. And it's like, yeah, David doesn't want to owe you something, He might not even need Peter after this at all, because like he got, like, if they hadn't been able to stop it, yeah, it would have, if everyone in Chicago would have been, would have lost their memory, and the testing could continue. I think that is definitely also something. Apparently in the book they go more into the genetic testing and the harm that the consequences of it, that sort of thing, and that, yeah, when you bring up genetic manipulation in a piece of media, like if you have the running time for it, you really should get into it more, like ultimately, like, yeah, that is a little unfortunate. Anyway, I think that does bring us to, so yeah, they drive to the checkpoint. It's like, papers, please. Which I guess at this point, saying papers, please, you can do it in papers, please. You can do it in an American accent, because, I mean, with ice, yeah, yeah. Anyway, and then Christina runs up and hands them and says, I have them right here. And then she gets in the car and they drive off. Awesome. Love it. Not sure how they managed to bring enough of those, I guess, reverse rappelling. I love it. Running up the wall, and there's a grappling hook. That's one of the coolest gadgets of the trilogy, I gotta say. Not to mention the various drones. I already mentioned the camo drones, which is also just such a cool idea. Because, like, yeah, that's how they keep it hidden. Because they're, ultimately they're not that far. Like, they didn't have to walk for terribly long to get to that edge, And yeah, normally you just can't pass. Yeah, I think that does bring us to the, but yeah, very, very cool when, so they get up there and there's the electricity and it's like, we gotta, knock that out, and then, you know, the car comes, you know, so cool, driving and shooting. I appreciate how much there is of that in these three movies. I guess especially 2 and 3, but but yeah, you know, and so you know, go back down. There's some shooting and the explosion, really cool, and then they go back up, and you know, 4 picks up and carries Triss out, you know, which is very romantic, and I feel like it's one of those things that just straddles the edge, because like I think, you know, I myself, you know, believe in romantic gestures, so for me that by itself is enough. But I think there's also a lot of guys who don't necessarily like romantic gestures, but like they like, you know, being physically strong and using that to do something for their female partner. So I think for a lot of them, it was probably also like, yeah, you go for, you know. Although I guess if the movie had come out today, maybe they would be saying like, oh, so suddenly he just like, you know, physically touches her, like, okay, where's the spouse? Is the spouse upset by this? And is this like an anxiety group, or what's going on here? Can you believe that they're trying to like cancel Pedro Pascal because some of the women and also men that work with him feel comfortable with, you know, them touching him touching them? Like, that's where we are now. Like, there's literally, there are, you know, both men and women who are deeply conservative, who like so thoroughly just, I mean, I wonder how many of them it's just that they look at like a man touching a woman and they're like, well, women don't like it when I touch them, so why is it okay for him to? And it's like, consent. Like the you know, crap, I forget who did, several excellent YouTubers have done videos on Pedro Pascal. Oh, was it maybe, let's see, no, it's just it's evading me completely, but several leftist YouTubers have recently made videos on Pedro Pascal. And yeah, you know, one of them straight up pointed out, like, a bunch of the time it's the woman initiating the touch. Like, this is a sign that he makes the people that he interacts with comfortable. And for a lot of these men who like celebrate toxic masculinity, like, that's such a foreign concept that they genuinely, they look at that and they think there's something wrong. And like, I just hope that we get to a point where young men are no longer listening to these, yeah, you know, the manosphere, I think, is the term, you know. And yeah, like I said, some of the people doing this are in fact women, you know. What was her name again? Kelly Keen Minshall or something like that. I try not to use that other name she goes by, because if you say it wrong, then you're naming an actor, and I don't want to accidentally, yeah, be saying something negative about that actor. That, yeah. Anyway, yeah, she also tried to spread this ridiculous thing. Like, just, yeah, I don't know, because he makes women feel comfortable and he acts in a lot of stuff. Like, okay, I agree that he, like, that there's that phrase about he's in everything now. I've liked him in everything I've seen him in. I, like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I haven't seen him miscast yet. If I watch something where I genuinely feel like he's miscast, yeah, you know, I will say it in the video on it. or if I don't do a video on that particular thing in another video. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So they managed to get out, you know, get over the wall, and I thought they did a good job making it clear the only reason they were able to get past the camo drones is because someone unlocked it from the other side. I guess if you try to pass without from either side without unlocking it first, you're just gonna hit like a wall that from the outside looks invisible. Which, I mean, fair enough. They don't really expect people to even walk there because, like, Janine and others were saying, oh, it's impossible to survive out there. It was only because of the box. When we found out what's in the box at the end of the second movie, that we learned, oh yeah, you can go there even though it looks like it doesn't exist. So yeah, you don't really need much. You just need people to not be able to see that there's something out there. You don't need to they don't expect people to actually walk out there, and you can actually pass it anyway, so what are they gonna do? Yeah, I really appreciated, so I'm afraid I forget his character's name, but the Skarsgård that's in this one, which I also forget his first name right now. I'm glad that there are as many Skarsgårds acting as there are Scarred, because they're so freaking talented. Like, I don't think I've heard a really negative thing that was like credible about one of the Skarsgårds. So yeah, I mean, I believe the one in this is the one who also played Pennywise the Dancing Clown in the new It movies, which I haven't watched yet. I like the miniseries fine. Maybe I'll watch. I do love the cast. Maybe I'll watch at some point. I'll watch the new ones, the adult versions of the kids. I big fan of several of those actors. Anyway, yes, we have the yeah. And he also plays Keith in Barbarian, and he's so freaking good at this thing of like, is this guy trustworthy or not? And I genuinely thought that he was gonna be one of the people, following David 100% and fighting against For and Triss. So it was a really great expectation subversion, because like they do just enough. He has these looks every so often where you don't like I will admit, at the time I was like, is that a sinister look? I don't know if I trust this guy. I feel like there's something off. His performance, he does such a great job. Let's see, what's the word? It's not ambivalence, right? It's but I can't read him. He's like a sphinx. But yeah, he gets just enough of these moments that in retrospect, oh, that was actually him doubting. Wow. Or him biding his time, waiting for, which be careful if you do that. You can actually bite your tongue if you bide time too hard. But the yes, I think I've said everything about him. So the yeah. You did also from pretty much right away get a bad feeling about the military guy of the Bureau. And that is perhaps also a thing, like, we again have the military force is evil, and they're trying to control people. It's a little bit too close to the first movie. I think it might have been, maybe in the book it is more complex and different. And with this, like, I feel like maybe they were trying to do, like, because it is a thing, like, there's a lot of stories where, like, near the end, they'll bring stuff back up that was there at the start. Hunger Games did also do that with several things. Not spoiling which in this video. Yeah, so the, let's see. I liked the way that they separated, so David keeps seeing Triss without For present, and 4 is just there with the other damaged and the bureau people that he, is trying to figure out if he can trust or not. There's even one point where one of the bureau people comes to the two of them, and they're talking about this, and he's like, I don't know if we can trust these people, and she's like, no, but David's gonna fix everything, and he's like, how can you know that that's gonna happen? And she's like, because of David, and he's pointing out, so you trust David a lot, huh? Based on his word and that he saved your mom, kind of thing, which, like, yeah, by itself, it's that thing, it's emotional manipulation. He knew that she really cared about her mom, so that's what he used. And, like, based on, like, it's not made clear, but, like, there's some chance that his people may have killed her, one or both of her parents, or at the very least stole her away from them. They didn't rescue her, they kidnapped her. The seeming threat that there was might have been posed by them themselves, or at the very least, it's the kind of thing where they could just be helping them instead of, like, yeah. And, yeah, there's commentary on American foreign policy there, just, like, sitting back and watching as people that are deemed lesser, tear each other apart because you are not doing enough. And to be clear, I'm not saying, I am very much against invasions and such, but there are other means of influencing other countries, and yeah, David is just watching as Chicago falls apart. And the, let's see, yeah, and the Bureau, they kidnap children from the, with that. They don't do, and there's the thing about, the trolley problem, we can't save the parents. We have to choose either the kids or the parents, and the parents, they'll die soon after. They talk about, they have short life expectancy and everything, and that's, yeah, it's very convenient, it's this thing of, like, I love science. I think science, it is not something that by itself can solve all our problems. We have to apply ethics also, but science can be part of the solution to many problems. And I think this does show, as other American pieces of media do, yeah, very well, without ethics. Or with, like, he thinks he has ethics, but, I mean, yeah, he's not being completely truthful about it. And for example, there's the thing about he's responsible for fixing Chicago, and he didn't. He let it, fall apart. And now he's going to gas them all so that they don't, so that he can use them, He thinks he has ethics, but he clearly does not. And that's, again, a problem with a lot of leaders if they're not questioned. And we see, by the end we realized, oh, there are actually people at the Bureau who hate David, but they can only do so much. They have to be secretive about it, or secretive, if you will. Yeah. The fact that... I guess I've made my point about that. So the thing I wanted to say, at the end of that conversation between Triss and 4 about trust and such, yeah, suddenly, right, and it's also the thing about, there's so much to say, though. Okay, the thing about, he says, I found out why I'm not allowed on the top floor. I'm damaged, you're pure. And she's like, oh yeah, I know. And he's like, so why didn't you tell me? And that, of course, potentially can cause a rift between them. She's keeping secrets now. She's trusting David, sometimes more than 4, seemingly, though by the end, she reveals she changed her mind. She confronted the, there's the thing about, why do you think we're going to the council? And he thinks the council isn't going to solve anything, but she's intending to confront them. She's not intending to just stand there meekly, she doesn't trust David without any kind of, verification or so, So she thought that the council are the ones who are to solve it, so she confronts them instead of David because she thinks he can't do anything about it. And to Four and us, it seems like, oh, she's just going along with it. So very nicely done there. But yes, you have she says she doesn't think that it matters that she's pure and he's damaged. Now, that's such a they handle that just right because she is she's technically correct, the very best kind of correct. We shouldn't treat people as different based on, for example, genetics. I have really appreciated, I know I've already said it before, but some of the discussion here on the left, leftist YouTube about those Sydney Sweeney jeans ads. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really great discussion. I guess, I mean, I already mentioned it in another video, but Elliot Sang again did multiple videos talking about it, and I think it's all hits. Like every single thing he says is accurate. And it's deeply disturbing that they are just so openly using these racist dog whistles now. So yeah, we need media like this. We need it in 2016. We might always need it. There's always going to be people who think that, genetics is like, it's not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you better. Yeah, watch Gattaca. I'm going to do a video on Gattaca at some point. It's just, yeah. I got the DVD and everything. Yes, I think... I'm not saying that movie's like flawless or anything, but it does a good job of communicating that point. That, perfect genes isn't gonna... Yeah. And it's one of those things like, you don't know what perfect genes are going to be because, like, it changes over time to adapt to the environment. If you start eliminating certain traits, you might end up with people, genetically modified people who are suddenly really ill-equipped for certain things because you thought, oh, we don't need that right now. Yeah, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. Like, evolution is messy, but we cannot start manipulating people's genes. Absolutely. It's yeah. Let's see. Okay. I think an argument can be made for like certain things, like but you know what? No, I'm not even going to touch it. Right now, I'm not entirely sure, but ethically, it is a minefield. If we ever do it, we have to be extremely careful. And I'm going to move on. Yes, she is right. They shouldn't be treated different. But at the same time, it is easy for someone who is, considered superior to be saying that. So, like, again, like, thankfully she expands upon it. But at the very start, it sounds like she's saying it doesn't matter that they think you're lesser. It doesn't matter, I've got mine, so it's, and like, we know that for good reason, has some abandonment issues. So her saying that feels very, yeah. I think that does, yeah, at this point, it's not super chronological anymore. Let's see. The drones, aiming drones are super cool, and I thought they put them to excellent use. I was with it the whole way. Yeah, really cool idea, this thing of like, oh, it creates a 3D image to help you aim, and, he can use it to, get to that kid. And that also, like, the moment that kid, like, yeah, like, he pulls the Dennis the Menace and shoots a rock at one of the drones. they don't want you here, you know? Like, that might be, and that's, again, a thing that sometimes, you know, American military will be, like, shocked and chagrined. Like, why are these civilians, including sometimes children, attacking us? And, you know, a lot of times it is just, like, throwing rocks or something. Like, you know, and often it's, like, at cars. So it's, like, you're not actually, they're not going to hurt you. And yet, you know, some of these American military men take it extremely poorly. But yeah, like, they don't want you there. You're not invited. Um, and sadly, too many of them don't think that through. And like I'm sorry, if someone threw a rock at the vehicle I was in, I would be thinking, should I just not be here? What is the alternative? Because a lot of the time there is an alternative, you know, and a lot of the time the alternative is preferable to military on the ground. Not saying always, but a lot of the time. Let's see. I think the I mean, yeah, like, if you're playing an RTS, you might be better off, you know, attacking with an aerial unit instead of boots on the ground, because the boots on the ground might be very easy for enemy defensive buildings to pick off. Sorry, I just felt the need to lighten the mood a little after that downer. But yes. And yeah, the fact that, you know, 4 arrives and like, nice place you got here. So, guns. You know, just like immediately, because that's, you know, that is part of who he is. You know, he is partially, he partially identifies as like a military person, you know. Let's see. You know, if he can't be back at home fighting, you know, the factionalists to stop. I forgot her name again. But his mom, you know, he's gonna be doing it here. He even insists on going on one of the missions, and they're like, "Okay, Dauntless. Wish you weren't here, but here we go, I guess." Yeah, I thought they did a really great job making David like this. I mean, he is essentially a fake populist. You know, he says things that Triss really wants to hear. And, yeah, they did a really great job on that. And he just, yeah, such a great actor. And that is the thing. I could definitely see how if they had made another one, he would have been the insurgent Janine of that movie, you know. Yeah, I think. Right. I completely forgot. I keep getting away from mentioning at the end of the discussion between 4 and Triss about trust and being pure or damaged. You know, there's the thing about, you know, I gotta go, which, you know, and she also, you know, later also, I gotta go. She keeps walking away from him, and yeah, then we realize no, it was with purpose. She genuinely thought that she could convince the council, you know. And it was, you know, it's one of those things where you got to be careful with a scene where the protagonist doesn't really accomplish anything. She learns something. She learns that David is not to be trusted, that it is indeed his fault that Chicago has gotten as bad as it is. You know, he keeps saying, we got to convince the council that that's the, you know, and that was also why he was like, I don't know why you want to talk to her. She doesn't know anything I don't, and she might say something that I really don't want her to. But yeah, they're like, SDFU, David. Triss, lay it on us. Loved seeing Xander Berkeley on something again. I don't see him in that many recent things, but he's in a bunch of movies from like the 90s and such that I watch, and I always appreciate seeing him play an a-hole. It is just so much fun. He's just sitting there like, can't believe this. Is like, how dare you? Who do you think you are? Running around leaving scars. Remember that song? That song was catchy. Real earworm. You probably have it running through your head now if you've ever heard it. Certainly I do. That's ADHD for you. Unmedicated, tried medicine once, made things worse. Anyway, I think that does bring us to the... What's the other thing? The line. My God, the line. Okay, here we go. I'm finally going to get to it. I think I've... Has it been like 40 minutes? You can let me know in the comments. I think it might have been 40 minutes since I first started talking about frickin' conversation. We're sitting there talking about trust. So, at the end of that, one of the people from the Bureau could walk up and tell Triss he wants to see you upstairs. Which, the movies are not necessarily subtle, but their allegories are on point. David is essentially being positioned like God, with Triss being like the chosen one, that God speaks to. Moses, I guess, with less of a burning bush, less of a bushfire. But the he has a God complex, That's very clear in how he treats others. One of those things being the surveillance, which again is major red flag, And I think they do a good job of trying to temper, because like a lot of us, the moment we hear surveillance, we're like, oh, like Big Brother, like 1984, is that what we're, But they say, oh, but no, that's we know you so well, and we're going to treat you right, kind of thing, Which is also because, like, we all like to be seen, Since I am at this point, I swear I'm going to get to the movie. I feel comfortable making a direct reference to it. All of us at some point in our lives have been like, witness me. So I'll just briefly say, the big part of the reason that I'm eventually... I have them on DVD now. I have the first 4 Mad Max movies on DVD, including Fury Road. Big part of the reason I'm going to do it... Can't believe I'm... What was his name again? His real name is Ian Danskin. I cannot believe I'm blanking on his YouTube channel name. Sorry. But yeah, among other things, he did amazing videos talking about different aspects of Fury Road, and oh yeah, Zoe Kravitz is in that one as well. Huh. Anyway, yeah, he really convinced me that I gotta watch the movie. But yeah, I've been hearing nothing but good things about it for like 10 years now. So yeah, obviously, yeah. Let's see. The reason I didn't watch it in theaters back then was that I had only watched the first Mad Max, not the other 2, and I was like, it's the continuity. And now I've heard, oh, it's not actually, you don't really need to watch the others. But you know me, I'm a lot of the time, not all the time, completionist. So yeah, that brings us to the right. He also did what's it called? How to Radicalize a Normie, and other videos talking about like the patterns of behavior and how to approach certain with when it comes to conservatives and such. Really, really excellent stuff. Now, right, I did actually get past the line, finally. I crossed the line off the list. I guess the next thing is the... I thought they did a good job with Caleb. Like he tries to stand up for Triss, and she's like, I don't need you to stand up for me. And Peter's like, ooh. So apparently Peter is one of those in the audience for a lot of those filmed in front of a live studio audience American TV shows. Who, yeah, yeah. The fact that she's not quite ready to forgive him yet, and I thought that was Talis the Introvert recently did an excellent video talking about let's see, I think it was called something like Everything You Know About Forgiveness Is Wrong. Fantastic video, and yeah, it is absolutely true. There is way too much pressure to quickly forgive someone who has wronged you. And by the end, she has forgiven him. She's putting her trust in him yet again. And I thought they did a good job with, he was erudite for a while, so he's the smartest of them. He's doing the hacking and, stuff like that. And he gets a little lost in watching people, the people watching thing, and that again is like, how much is he like what he was in the, he did betray them, will he do it again? I thought they played with that tension really well. But then he ends up seeing, important things, and he shows them to some of the others. Peter, being really frustrated with the job he's given and trying to talk her out of it, and going, being willing to betray everyone in Chicago just so he can, you can have any job you want, except mine. Which is also a thing, dictators hate the idea of being replaced. Sometimes even if they chose the person to succeed them, I think that covers, let's see. What was the other thing that I wanted to get to there? I think I wanted to talk about, so yeah, they do a really great job gradually increasing the tension about Joe and the essential civil war in Chicago, which is also, sometimes civil war will follow a revolution. Yes, the mission that they go on, he manages to catch up to the kid, and the father's right there, and you have this thing of like, they're in distress. They don't think these are the liberators. These are they're going to take me to a better life. Like, they're scared of them. Because that's what happens when people hear about the things that, every so often word gets around, Why? What happened to all the kids? There was like a small town here, a village. People came in red camo and they just took them. We haven't heard from them since. That's gonna spread. So yeah, they're terrified, and yeah, like, okay, it was an accident that this one person was shot, but and also the fact that David says, one mistake. This is what we're talking about is one mistake. But are you gonna fix it though, or are you just gonna let? Because that's like, he might as well say, we're talking about like one bad apple. Well, maybe you need to improve training, or maybe not do that. Like, yeah, ACAP. You can look up the details yourself. I'm not the best at explaining them, but yeah. We're gonna move on. So the kid and really great bit with Christina, like hugging the kid, and that helps calm him down. Again, a case of like, I always feel the need to clarify, this is not gender essentialism. I'm talking about socialization, the way that boys and girls are raised slightly differently. And I'm also not saying it's true of absolutely everyone, but a lot of women have a higher emotional intelligence and are better at handling situations where someone is upset than a lot of men. So yeah, really nicely displayed there, and it's very clear. Like, yeah, the other soldiers, it's only Four and Christine that care. Nobody else that's in uniform cares about what, it's like, he's gonna die anyway. Didn't you hear? Like, he's gonna live till like 50. Like, oh my god, why even? That's such a short amount of time. Yeah. And the gas. They yeah. all these kids are brought in, and they're told, this is gonna be a gas. And yeah, 4 immediately sees through it. Oh, it's vaccination. We weren't vaccinated though. Like, there's something going on here. Yeah, I'm sure David, by the end of the movie, has really regretted that he didn't, use the gas on the others. But that's, a lot of fascists fail because of their arrogance. He's so certain that he can convince Triss and that no one else will interfere sufficiently. He even lets them dine together. Like, he doesn't want 4 up there, but he lets them eat together, like, even though that means they can have conversations, and that does seem to be part of why she ends up confronting the council as she does, which again is a great, like, we don't want, we want more female protagonists, but we don't want them to be these flawless, like, perfect individuals. I try these days to not use the term Mary Sue because it has basically just, it's a thought-terminating cliche at this point. A lot of people don't even think about, is the character that's being referred to as a Mary Sue actually Mary Sue? They just hear, oh, that's a Mary Sue, and they're like, I hate them then. Yeah. They do a really good job avoiding that here because, yeah, for a while, she's at least seems to be buying what David is selling. And 4 helps ground her, and we do all need, to be clear, I'm not saying that women need men, but like men, women need community. We got to get away from, I think it's called Great Man Theory, this ridiculous individualist thing of like, oh, he's got, there's certain people, usually white cishet men, obviously, anything else would be DEI. They're just better than the rest of us, and we just have to bow down and kiss their feet and be grateful that they're here to fix everything. And if they break everything instead of fixing everything, I mean, this, squirrel. But the yeah, I think they handle it very well to make clear, yeah, she's not perfect. She needs the rest of the, they are essentially a little found family. I mean, yeah, 2 of them are dating, 2 of them are siblings, but other than that, okay, I guess at this point it is almost just Christina who's not dating or related, but whatever. Still, they've formed a little unit that works together really well. Let's see. I guess, but yeah, the gas. With he talks to, I think her name was Nita. It's like, what's going on here? And with her, it's also great because like you get these little looks, and it's not quite clear if she's frustrated at having to carry out David's orders, which it evidently, by the end it's clear that's what it was, or if she's angry that there are now these people from outside, why am I having to deal with one of these damaged individuals? But, again, like I mentioned in the review, it's these very subtle performances where they're hiding something, but we're not sure what. I think we from pretty early on figure there's got to be something. This is too, like, there's a, there's some downside to the Bureau. We don't know immediately what it is necessarily, or we don't know from right away all the details. But yeah, they do a good job of hiding, allies in plain sight. With the, I want to say her name is Nita, and the Skarsgård character. Let's see. Yes, so he's talking, what's going on, and then Christina comes up. Hey, you better take a look at this. And it's, so, what's your name? My name? I'm sorry about your father. What about my father? And just like, holy crap. That is existential dread right there. Holy crap. Oh boy, and that's the big finale. You know, maybe everyone in Chicago will end up just like that. You know, and there is that excellent line. You know, when you take away their memories, you take away their identities. You know, and okay, at this point, I might as well plug. If you haven't already, on Nebula, Identities, amazing short film. I really hope Jesse Gender gets to, or Jesse Earl gets to make more of these, because holy crap, like, amazing. Yes, I did an entire video on it, or multiple. I forget if that was one I split up. Anyway, yes, we are going to move on to the. Yes, I think they've been doing a really good job. In all three of these. They do a fantastic job. You know, the first one, you know, people being mind controlled into doing horrific things. You know, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm just, you know, that's what we had there. And here we have this idea of everyone losing their identity and just becoming these, like, blank slates, which fascism loves. You know, one of the traits of fascist states is they try to say that the way things are right now is the way they've always been, or they've always been destined to be at least. And there is no future that is different from this. And in order to do that, you have to control the past. You have to manage how people think of the past. They have to worship certain aspects that you're talking about, either bringing back or, you know, yeah, in some way appealing to. But other, you know, there are things that they don't want you thinking about, because some fascist states come out of democracies that were not quite strong enough to resist fascism. And they really don't want you to remember that there used to be such a thing as civil rights, you know? So, yeah, it's such a great allegory, because, like, obviously in real life, they're not erasing people's memories, literally, but they talk about the past in very certain ways and encourage others to do so, and through peer pressure and also some actual, like, penalties, punishments, you know, yeah, they end up with people pretending like the past was a certain thing and the present is better than it is, because fascists can't actually deliver something that makes people really satisfied and happy the way that democracy can. You know, capitalism also really struggles with delivering actual happiness. It keeps selling us the idea that happiness is just around the corner. You just got to buy this product. And communism, when it's not a dictatorship, has a much better chance of satisfying, yeah, human needs. And yes, if you've been watching a lot of my recent videos, you probably knew at some point I was gonna get to, yeah, I'm gonna move on. I'm not gonna do the whole spiel. I just it felt appropriate. Yes, so the yeah, let's see, I guess that does bring us nicely to let's see, but yeah, the thing about, you know, kidnapping children and just, you know, yeah, like, yeah, separating families is something that's happening right now. ICE is, yeah, separating families, deporting parents who just want to take care of their kids and work and contribute to society, whilst, you know, native-born citizens that are, you know, that don't have immigrant parents, you know, some of them can get away with horrible crimes, in part because of some of the people in power. Let's see. I think that does. But yeah, you know, it again is like, let's see. I guess perhaps what it is most reminiscent of is the. I cannot remember the entire. It has a specific name, but the slave trade. You know, North Atlantic Pacific slave trade, something like that. I am not great at geography, but yeah, just going to a place, forcibly removing the people that you think will be, effective for your purposes, and taking away their culture. And again, we're not talking about literal erasing of memories and such. And I think it's a wonderful thing that despite efforts, the aspects of their culture did manage to survive. And if you claim that you don't like any of the music that was inspired by African culture, that developed among slaves and their descendants and such, I don't think I'm going to believe you, because that's simply not entirely possible. Like, I guess it's maybe you haven't heard enough to find something you really vibe with, but yeah, it's diversity is our strength. Immigration makes us, better, not worse. It's actually it's one of those things. It's similar with trans people and in general minorities. It's not the minorities that make us worse. It's bigotry towards them. If the if we could convince the bigots to accept the minorities, we could all work together. We could, unionize. I'm gonna move on. I swear. Bleep. Yes, I swear. I think that does bring us to... Yeah, I think I said everything about the slave stuff. Because essentially they are going to be slaves, They're not going to have a choice in the matter of... And they're going to, grow up to be, just, tools for the Bureau. That might just about bring us to the last chunk of movie. Is there anything else I wanted to say about the early parts? I did really appreciate that, she still doesn't want her son killed. She says, no, 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 capture him, don't kill him. Let's see. Yeah, the new guns were really cool as well. The ones that they use with the 3D drones. Yeah, I think that does bring us very nicely to the... So yeah, there's a... No, I already mentioned that. Yeah, so yeah. Caleb, sees something important, runs, tells them, and then we get this sequence, which I mean, I couldn't say exactly how long, but it certainly is a little while, where we're watching stuff that's happening in Chicago via replay. I did think they did I love that they actually had the actors there, even though they're not where it's happening. Triss is right there watching it, for example. Same thing when she saw, some of her mom's, past experiences, that sort of thing. Yeah, the fact that, but yeah, we're watching them catch up, and I appreciate that it would have taken a huge rewrite to change this, but I do think it was a lot. That was the thing I was, referring to in the, in the review, as, maybe some of that should have been earlier or something. But yeah, there's a chunk there where we're just getting caught up, and I do appreciate that we don't have to first watch it and then a character explains it to another character, but we're just seeing it as playback. But yeah, and I thought they did a good job with the little glitchy things to make it clear that this is playback and someone is watching it, kind of thing. Let's see. Yeah. There's so much to cover. Let's see. So I'm definitely gonna talk about... So yes, the we have the thing of let's see. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Let's see. I guess I'll talk about, so yes, for his father. Again, fantastic acting. And the thing about him saying he protected their son, and where were you? And she points out, protect, you beat him, you know, and that, again, like, I, I, I'm in favor of restorative justice, not retributive justice, so I don't like the mind erasing of him. And it is also one of those things, like, I don't know. They did need to bring him in one way or another. He's so important to the first two films, you know, important character to 4 and Evelyn. Yeah, the thing about, you know, try this on for size, but don't use it on someone you like. And then she, of course, goes to you know, and that is also, I really appreciate a scene where a woman is able to confront her abusive ex. That is really powerful. Let's see. I thought they did a great job on the tension of, you know, first, before they can release the gas, the fluid fills up, so we have this visual indicator without having, well, let's see, I think maybe there's also like a percentage counter, but seeing the visual of it fill up, which also underlines they really are going to use enough to hit all of Chicago, you know. And yeah, the moment that she realizes that, which, you know, and the thing about, you know, I won't know who you are. She presses the button. She stops the, you know, the moment is slightly messed up by the fact that then, like, a pop-up shows up that she then has to click on before she can click cancel. But again, that is something. I don't know if Veronica Roth, who wrote the books, is a mother, but that certainly is. Yeah, I feel quite confident in asserting a lot of mothers under those circumstances would immediately, like, because like, keep in mind, I mean, she is risking, I mean, Joe is likely to win this civil war. You know, who knows exactly what's going to happen to her after all that she's done, but she can't take an action that's going to mean that her son forgets her, you know, even though they have a strained relationship, even though he's sometimes very, very angry at her and refuses to be by her side when she feels that she needs him, you know, for this rule, and earlier in the for the fight in the second movie. That's simply not something she can go along with. And yeah, I've really loved to hate Peter, and this is the most hateable he's ever been. And I love the thing about, you know, he manages to get it, you know, he's got the gun, and Forrest's just like, I will find you. And one day, your ass. Yeah, that is something I would, that would have been. I'm just gonna, after I've recorded this video, in my mind, I'm gonna picture how he finds him, and yeah, confrontation, Peter desperately trying to manipulate the situation in some way. Yeah. He's been so fun to just hate. I'm so glad that Miles Teller gets to do, you know, gets to act as like much more appealing characters in other movies as well, because like I would feel really bad for him because he's apparently a nice guy in real life, you know. Yeah, if he only got to play Peter Shit Eater, so named for the grin. Let's see, the military guy also had a great shit eating grin in this one, I think. But yeah, great bit about, so yeah, the surveillance allows them to realize that David has sent Peter, and he's, you know, telling Evelyn about the gas, and she's gonna gas all of Chicago without knowing. So 4 is gonna go back there, and he's trying to get Trish to come with, but Trish wants to go to the council first, you know, we do realize she was intending to go back and help also. But that's also, you know, she thought that the council would help with Chicago, but no, that's David, and you know, maybe you should clean up your own mess before you ask us to do anything, you know. Which is also, there's such a great picture of like bureaucrats. Like, I feel like you could probably help also. If it's 100% his division, then surely his work in his division is not going to interfere with your work in your division. You know, it's just, or I suppose they could also be maybe they're more like feckless career politicians, just sitting by whilst that was also yeah. Elliot Sang again did a video talking about let's see, I think it's called Colbert is Not a Victim, where he criticizes there's a senator that was on the show, and yeah, you gotta watch his video. I believe that was actually the one that he based on the lighting, apparently filmed in heaven. I'm one to talk. If you've watched my video on Just Cause 2, yeah, made the same had the same issue. Anyway, let's see. I think that does bring us to the but yeah, that was a great moment where he's like, he made it to the top floor, and also the thing with, you know, the one who was like, no, you can't, you're damaged, you can't go in here, and you know, he manages to get up there, and she just says, no, I gotta go, I'm going to the council, you know. Just, yeah, really great moment, because like for a while it seems like maybe it really has gone to her head. Maybe she's now got this like god complex, which is obviously, you know, David was hoping that he would, you know, fill her head with all these ideas. No, you're pure, you're perfect, you're the best one, you know. Because like when she was told she was divergent, she was told, you have to hide this is bad. And then she was found in the second one to be 100% divergent, and now, you know, and now we see, oh yeah, because the genetic, yeah, she's pure. Finally, it's, you know, because yeah, in the first one, hide, you're divergent. In the second one, you're 100% divergent. Well, we're gonna force you through these horrifying tests that have killed others in order to, you know, so that you can help Janine the dictator, you know, become even more powerful, you know. And then here is like, oh, you're pure, you're perfect, you know. And that again, like, that's not a woman thing. Any one of us, you know, if someone we trust, and she trusts him because he saved her mom, if someone you trust tells you over and over, you're perfect, this is, you know, like, yeah, a lot of people will end up believing it. It's difficult to resist that, you know. That's actually part of why some people right now are falling in love with ChatGPT and becoming cult leaders, and yeah, we gotta really. There are things that need doing. Also worth watching, and on that subject, Kaylin Conrad. I'm afraid I forget exactly what it's called, but I think it was something along like, my AI therapist told me to kill people, maybe, or something along those lines. Fantastic video, not for the faint of heart, as the title elucidates. Yes, so the yeah, I guess I think I may have said everything I had about the council itself. But yeah, very clever that you know, afterwards she's 100% anti-David. She's like, call me Goliath, I am not a fan of David. And you know, she gathers the rest of the troops, the ones that are still, you know, at the bureau, and they fly away. And oh, let's see. Before that, I guess I should cover the, yeah. So yes, the I think it's called the bullfrog fight. There's only on the DVD. There's like a commentary track with two producers, and then a general behind the scenes making of, and then a behind the scenes specifically about the bullfrog fight. You know, so yeah, that's how it's I would argue the best action scene in this trilogy, which is already full of great action, you know. Yeah, you know, there's the thing about, well, I mean, if you want to go to Chicago, there's nothing in the rule book that says we can't fly a dog to Chicago. So he's sitting there, and you know, he's seeing like things are happening, like not under the table kinds of things, not too obvious, but not too hidden either. And one of them has a gun. Some of them have knives and shit. I thought it was very interesting because at first it sounds like he's taunting him, but no, he was saying it to prepare him so that the two of them could, you know, yeah, so that four at least could get to Chicago. Yeah, the guy tries to shoot him, but four, like, you know, he's fast enough so the guy accidentally shoots himself in the leg. I love, you know, that's, you know, hoisted by his own petard, you know. If he hadn't tried to shoot four wouldn't have gotten him to shoot himself. And the fight where, like, you know, he'll punch one guy and then that guy will go off and then he has to fight someone on the other side and then the first guy's back and there's knives and they gotta like guide it into people and they're both like punching and fighting people and you know, there's the, you know, a gun or two goes off. It's like, you know, the I shot the pilot. You shot the pilot. And the yeah, they crash and you know, manage to survive. I love the bit where they're like starting to crash and there's like, what's it called, like zero gravity, I guess, like, and he's like going up and he still has to fight. It's so cool, such a well choreographed, yeah. And the thing about, you know, tell David that I left you behind. Why? Because Trish will know you're lying. You know, very nicely done. Because, like, yeah, if, you know, it has to be clear that that's what's going on. Because she's like, there's no way that he would just leave you, you know. Which is also a great, you know, she knows him that well. And he knows that she knows that he knows that she knows. And the knows. Because it's very knowledgeable. Let's see. What's the word? Yeah. So, you know, he gets back, you know, he gets the pass. This one time he gets a pass from the Skarsgård. And the movie's Skarsgård. There's more than one Skarsgård in total. Do you think they combine like a Megazord? Into a Megazord. And let's see, then what's the other thing? We have crap. Yeah, you know, he manages to get back, and obviously, you know, Evelyn puts him in prison because he's still not willing to serve by, you know, and we have one of those fights where, you know, I thought they did a great job because at first it looks like he might actually be able to make it out, but of course there is at least a little bit too much opposition there, but great fight, again, very well choreographed, well handled. And it's, you know, when you have the protagonist lose a fight, it's important that something else was accomplished or learned, and he got the access card, so now he can unlock anytime. He's just waiting for the right moment. Very, very nicely done. And he's got the drones and everything. I guess I will briefly talk about, yeah, good. Like I think I said in at least one of the other videos, and it's, yeah. It remained true up here until up to and including the end. I never tired of seeing them like clear hallways of enemies with guns and such, and occasionally like punching. I like the guy that, you know, ran away and then like I guess, let's see, was it a punch or was it the drone? Anyway, he comes flying back. You know, at first I was like, really, you're gonna have the black guy run away? But there was another black guy there, you know. I wouldn't have minded if they maybe had a white guy do that instead, but he wasn't the only black person in the group. Let's see, I think, But yeah, really cool as they fight, and now armed with the drones also. Um, and yeah, the fact that part of the climax is appealing to the better nature, because we got to get. It can sometimes be very difficult to empathize with our enemies, and I'm not saying we should do it to the point where we let them get away with, again, restorative justice, not retributive, but we have to compel them to stop doing the wrong thing. But if we don't empathize with them, there's a lot of problems we're never going to be able to solve, because they are always going to see things that certain way if we never try to appeal to them. And it's difficult work, and it's frustrating, and I'm definitely not telling any minority that it's their responsibility. I hate when I see fellow white progressive cishet men say, minorities, it's that it's on them specifically. Like, obviously it's great if they participate, but they're already dealing with so much. I don't blame any member of a minority who simply can't join us leftists. Let's see. It's more, if you're a cishet white man and you are like really far right, like that I find frustrating. That is, like, how do you still think that that's the solution? Anyway, yeah, I guess I should talk about, so yeah, they managed to get on the, the flying thing. I guess their rifles are not quite powerful enough that they could take out the bullfrogs. That's fair enough. Like, you can't do that with, like, an M16 is not going to do anything to, like, at least some flying. I guess I'm not sure if it's all, but anyway, we're gonna move on. And I think it's also supposed to be more heavily armored. I think it's more supposed to be like essentially a flying tank, like very heavily armored. Anyway, yeah, they, for a while, manual pilot, and the bullfrogs are trying to force a landing, and so she goes to manual, and we were just told, you don't know how to fly, so she has to learn on the, really, really fast. I was okay with her being able to basically maneuver, because it is, I mean, it's a joystick, and she does struggle at first. It takes her a while to pull up. I think they pushed it a little too far, the fact that she's able to dodge multiple, like, locked on missiles. I wish that, I get that I get the appeal. I thought it was cool to watch. It's just something I didn't completely, I don't know, would it maybe have been, I think I would have liked it better if she had, like, clicked on something and the jet itself had, like, yeah, maybe, like, I know some will, like, throw out something to distract the locked on missile, maybe something like that, or maybe, like, set it back to manual, and then it, like, immediately goes evasive maneuvers, and then it does, and because, like, you could have a line of, like, one of, either Christina or Caleb goes, like, I know you can now steer it, but you can't dodge. Are you saying you think you can dodge missiles? I'm saying I won't have to. And then she presses the manual. It takes care of it. Goes back to yeah, changes from manual to autopilot. Then changes back to manual. I didn't think that they needed, because she does something really cool afterwards when she is able to use the drones to find the right place, shoot, and then get, yeah, stop the spread of the gas. I thought that was enough. And that and her manual flying outside of the dodging missiles. I think that does pretty much bring us to the next. Let's see. I feel like there's one more thing with. I like the thing with. Yeah. So there's only the 2 seats. So obviously, Christina has no choice but to sit on. And she's not going to sit on the lap of the pilot. That wouldn't make sense. So she sits on Caleb's lap, and from immediately there's some awkwardness, and he's like, he doesn't quite know where to put his hands, which, you know, that is one thing I will say. I don't think he was actually going to, like, you know, touch her in an inappropriate way. He was just trying to figure out what to do with, you know, a lot of the time, you know, believe me, what's the phrase? Believe women. You know, when a woman comes forth and says she was, you know, but yeah, there I don't think the movie was implying that he would have, but I do really love her line. You know, what was it, like, keep your hands to yourself, or I throw you out the plane. That was great. You know. Yeah, I think. Right now, I also thought they did a good job of explaining why the bullfrogs don't just follow, you know, to Chicago. Yeah, so we have Caleb in the. I thought the climax itself is just complex enough, but without getting overwhelming. You know, I do think that it's a little bit convoluted. There's a little, you know, yeah, a little bit too much going on here in the last half. But the climax itself, I thought was handled really well. But yeah, so he's sitting there hacking, and then he's like, I found it. Triss, I know what to do. And there's cut communications because he's watching and he has complete control. You know, we found out he's in charge of Chicago, and you know, yeah. So he has to run and get to them, and it makes sense that he knows how to get to them because he was the one who showed them the video that showed where the button was and everything. He knows exactly where to go, and he knows they know where to go. And yeah, so he explains it, and then she has to go find it. And the fact that the gas is actually released, very, yeah, intense. And I thought they did a good job of, because it's one of those things, when it's extremely effective is when, like, there's the gas mask and it's like all you can inhale, and there's a concentrated dose. So spreading a bunch of the gas out across the city is not going to immediately erase the minds of everyone, you know. So nicely done on that. It's one of those things where, like, in a lot of movies, it would be a bomb going off. Here, it's gas taking effect, you know, and for a while it is, you know, can they get there before the gas is released at all, kind of thing. I thought they did a really great job on that, because, like, there was a little while where I was like, oh my god, if that gas is released, and then once we see people coughing, and, you know, and yeah, trying to run away and run through it and such, it does become, oh right, because, you know, what I just explained, it's not as a direct thing of, like, yeah. Let's see, I think, but yeah, you know, her getting in there, and then he locks the door in front of her, but she does manage to get the drones in under, and then around, you know, I know exactly where to shoot, and she, you know, does, and yeah, I think, does that more or less bring us to, yeah, I did think they did a pretty good job, him popping up on screens and speaking, you know. It was a decent enough, you know, I appreciate that if they had done that the entire movie, it would have been too much like Janine in the second movie. Yeah, I made my points about that. I really loved how for so much of it he, like, is so in control, and then there at the end he's like, ah, you know, when he loses, he does show that he does have it in him to get angry. He's not so pure, he's not so perfect. And the what was the other thing I wanted to say with that? Right, when he, like, basically sets it up as a trolley problem. You know, you have one old, sick, dying guy and one kid, and, you know, it's that thing of, like, is that really how it, you know, like, because we know he lies about some things, so it's certainly he doesn't need to handle it the way that he, right, again, I already covered that, okay. But yeah, you know, he's like, Tobias is like, you know, like, he, you know, the thing about he's refusing to choose between them. You know, he actually pulls that move like that kid in the one video where he, you know, takes the person from one of the two tracks, put him on the other, and then runs them both over. Kids. That is a really fun video. Like, I hope that kid doesn't feel bad about growing up and then realizing, oh, that was supposed to be like an ethical choice. But like, a kid that age isn't gonna understand an ethical choice. Come on. But yeah, I feel like there's something left. What was the... Yeah, it was great there at the end with the, Triss delivering a message, talking about, pure and damaged. It's like with the factions, we're still dehumanizing people. Because we do see, at the start of the movie, he says, oh, they were sheep. Sheep, it's okay to kill sheep. And David has dehumanized... Ah, crap, I'm really trying not to repeat myself. I just forget the things I've already said is the thing. Let's see. I think that does pretty much bring us... But yeah, I mean, based on how I heard, like, I knew that the movie ended on a cliffhanger. I thought that it was gonna, like, go to credits before they dealt with the gas or something, I mean, I get, like... yeah, there could have been another movie. I already talked about some of what that would contain, but I mean, the movie sets up the threat of the gas and, Janine as a bad leader, and yeah, they, what's the word? They resolve that by the end. I mean, I'm not 100% sure who's gonna be in charge of Chicago by the end. After the events of this movie. But I do think that Janine has, by that point, accepted that she either shouldn't lead at all, or she should listen to people who ground her. Because that's why, I mentioned earlier, that's part of Triss's strength. The people who ground her, her support system. What does Janine have? Bunch of yes men, Just yeah, bunch of people just agreeing with her decisions, and then, she starts to just, seem less and less like she knows what she's doing, and, suddenly she's walking on the roof of the White House and obviously agreeing to everything Putin says. Yeah. I actually, I saw someone say that now Trump, because of how disastrous the meeting with Putin went, Trump is going to have to release the Epstein files to distract from the disastrous Putin meeting.